once again it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome everyone to episode 58 of the Tristain on Sports Show Toss. It is your main man, the friendly neighborhood T-Square, Tristain Thomas. Thank you all so very much for joining us. If you're celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you're all doing it smartly, celebrating small this year, being safe. COVID is no joke. This week, we got to talk about, we got problems with the Bucks. Boy, did they mess up. The Badgers, is there really a point to keep going on with the season? Green Bay Packers, we got to talk about what happened in Indianapolis. And then the toss sweep, we got to talk about the good and the bad of the NFL season so far. But you guys know how we get things started here on Toss. We get things started with the state of the state, and we have to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. And last week, it was just absolute jubilation over the moves made by Jon Horst. I mean, we had to hit Jon Horst with one of these last week. I mean, so many masterful moves that were made, and you acquired Drew Holiday, and that move was made official. That trade was made official today. And then the big move, and I'll give you guys a little bit of intricacies about this move. So people I've been talking to, it's no secret that they've coveted Bogdanovich for a while. This was a guy, as I said last week on Toss, that they were thinking about pulling the trigger on at the trade deadline last season. He's a guy who's a consistent three-point shooter, consistent double-digit points. He's the type of player that would fit in perfectly with this squad and what they're trying to do. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reports that the Bucks and the Hawks had agreed to a sign and trade. Everyone's excited. Oh, man, we got the complete roster now. We're right where we want to be. It's a championship. I mean, not everybody was saying that, but you get the general feeling. There was great jubilation all around about the moves that have been made. And like I said, the Drew Holiday trade was made official today, as were other signings, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But that Bogdanovich sign and trade, yeah, about that. That didn't quite happen. We thought there was a sign and trade in place. Woj even said so. Apparently there was not. Reports come out that said he never agreed to a sign and trade. And back to the intricacies that I said I was going to give you on that. So people I've been talking to, like I said, it's no secret that the Bucks had coveted Bogdanovich. They wanted him. I had been hearing his name from people I had spoken to in circles, and in Bucks circles. Professor P, Eugene Pitchford, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, the Champions Table. You go back and listen to that episode. We're texting back and forth. He's like, man, what do you think about the trade? And I'm giving him my analysis of the trade. Like, man, it was the move that needed to be made. You know, Bledsoe just could not produce in the postseason. And, you know, we're discussing it, and he comes out and says, hey, I think we need more. I think we need more. To which I responded to him that they're talking Bogdanovich. And I said, I don't know how serious it is, but his name has come up. His name has come up, and it's come up quite a bit. I don't know how serious it is, I told Professor P. About 15 minutes later, the news broke of a sign and trade, or what we thought was an agreed upon sign and trade. And it turns out that it wasn't. Then you get reports of the NBA opening up a tampering investigation against the Milwaukee Bucks, because this trade was apparently, and I'm putting air quotes when I say that, apparently or allegedly agreed upon or agreed to well before trades could be agreed upon and made. And you're talking like more or less a couple of days, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And I won't bother getting into the conspiracy theories with LeBron James and Clutch Sports and that type of tampering that's going on. I'm not here for that. You guys can go off on that tangent on your own. But you have a small market team dealing with another small market team. One being in championship air, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. One that is still building, which is the Sacramento Kings. They're just trying to get along and do business together, making both their teams better. All the pieces were there for a sign and trade. Dante DiVincenzo and DJ Wilson. You know, they were going to go out to Sacramento, and Bogdanovich was going to come to Milwaukee on a sign and trade. You thought you had the championship pieces in place with that trade until you didn't. And now there's a chance that you're going to pay a price for it when I don't believe the Bucks did anything wrong here. Now, the question becomes, who's in the wrong? Was it the Bucks? Did they have loose lips? Was it loose lips within that organization? Because I could tell you, when I try to get some information around people in those circles, you know, and not in direct contact with, you know, not exactly with Milwaukee Bucks, I'm not going to put it out there. But when I try to get information about that situation, it's very tight-lipped. Nobody knows nothing. Not a whole lot coming out of that organization. Was it Woj? Did he word it incorrectly? Did he speak on it incorrectly? Did he get the wrong information? I mean, typically, if he gets information, and when you get information like this, you confirm it with multiple sources. You don't just go off of one. You have to confirm it multiple times, 2 and 3 times if you can. People have gone to trust his opinion. They've gone, and not even his opinion, they've gone to trust his reporting because this is his job. He breaks this kind of news. So why would he be wrong? So a lot of the times people take his word as firm, and there lies the problem, because if he miswords something and people are taking it as firm, that gets people into trouble. And that's the situation here. I don't know where to go with this. Was it loose lips from the Bucks organization? Was it incorrect wording or incorrect information from Woj? Doesn't matter now because Bogdanovich is off the table. The NBA's already interjected. Any type of trade they would have put together in a legal time frame, they probably would have squashed and voided. The Bucks, one of the contractors that was supposed to go out there, one of the players that was supposed to go out there, Ersan Ilyasova, well, they released him. One less player, one less contract that go out there to make the money match and bring in Bogdanovich. When that move happened, you know it was over. It was truly over. It's just such a messed up situation. It is such a messed up situation. It makes people, and it makes those feelings understandable about how Bucks fans everywhere, small market teams everywhere say, okay, you have all these big major market teams, the LAs, the New Yorks, the Miamis, the Chicagos, things like that. Teams like that, the Golden States. Not that Chicago is, you know, a major team right now anymore, but they are a major city. But you have big market teams, is what I'm trying to say. Big market teams like the LAs and the Golden States and the Miamis. Teams like that go out there and they're making these huge moves. And really, we could just really put it on the Lakers right now because LeBron's out there. They go out there, they make these huge, big moves like this, and they move in much the same way, and you don't penalize them for anything. Now, one could go back and say, What about the Chris Paul trade? They voided that. And I think everybody is in 100% agreement that they were in the wrong about that. But think about that situation. The NBA at the time owned the Hornets. They owned the Hornets at the time. That was the NBA's responsibility until a new owner came in. So they were not going to give up that team's most valuable player, that most valuable asset, to keep them from making money in New Orleans and ship him out to LA. The NBA did not want to be embarrassed and be in the red because that team was absolutely atrocious outside of Chris Paul. It was just, without Chris Paul, they were really nothing. Let's be clear about it. You talk about prime Chris Paul. Not that he's no good now, because he is still one of the best floor generals out there. First ballot Hall of Famer, loved him. Love him. But you talk about prime Chris Paul. Being on a Hornets team, owned by the NBA. You know the NBA was going to squash that and void that trade. So that was what we're all in agreement. That was 100% incorrect move, wrong move. They were dead wrong in doing that. That was about their bottom dollar, making themselves look good and not look embarrassed because they couldn't draw money in New Orleans, and they're the ones that own the team. That was a bad look for them. But you have these big market teams. And like I said, we're talking about LA, that go and move the same way and make these same moves and get penalized for nothing. They get zero penalties on them. But you got a small market team in Milwaukee with a generational talent, a player that could go down as a top 5 all-time player, who has a contract extension on the table. The future of this franchise hinges on this man, this 2-time MVP in Giannis, this generational talent, re-signing in Milwaukee. The franchise's future depends on it. The championship window and the championship time for this franchise depends on it. The foreseeable future depends on it. And you squash a move that not only makes them title contenders for the next few years, but could potentially be a move that makes him sign that contract a little bit quicker, if at all. Because let's be clear, until that ink dries, anything's possible. Giannis says he loves Milwaukee. He said that he wants to raise his child in Milwaukee. One of the most beautiful places he's ever visited is Milwaukee. He says all the right things, and he has given you no reason to believe that he isn't genuine and sincere in everything that he says and does. But until that ink dries, you're a superstar, a generational talent and not even a superstar. You're a mega star. You're an uber star. You're stratosphere that everybody wants. And everybody's going to do everything they possibly can to woo you away from that small market in Milwaukee, because small market teams like Milwaukee are not supposed to win. So you can see why Bucks fans subscribe to that thought process when they see things like this happen and continue to happen. It's not right. Now, do I believe that Giannis signs that contract? Yes. Because if you're John Horst, you don't make moves like this. You don't make a move to give up 2 players, in Eric Bledsoe and George Hill, and multiple first-round picks for one player. You don't make that move. You do not make that move if you don't believe that your star, your generational talent, is not going to resign. Now, is Giannis taking his time? Yes. Is he focused on his workouts? Is he focused on unboxing his PS5, which, I'm hating on him about that because I don't even have one. Of course, the NBA MVP back-to-back years is going to get one. PlayStation, feel free to slide your boy one, please. But is he taking his time? Is he enjoying the last few moments of this abbreviated off season with his lady and his son and his family? His brother just won a championship, has a chance to go back and win another. The Lakers have really retooled and reloaded. They're looking good too. But you don't make a move like that unless you know that your two-time MVP, generational talent, and Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to resign. So the Bogdan Bogdanović trade, it's done. The Drew Holiday trade is official. You're not going to get Bogdanović. Like I said, he's going to the Hawks. 4 years, $72 million. Sacramento decided they were not going to match that offer sheet. Whole messed up situation. He should be a Milwaukee Buck, but he isn't. So what moves do you make after that? How do you recover from something kind of devastating? Well, you go, you look at the team's needs, and you make moves. You do what a general manager is supposed to do. So what has John Horst done in that time? He signed Torrey Craig, who I love. And I'll tell you why. Because he was instrumental to the Nuggets defense, especially in the bubble, in the playoffs. He's able to guard multiple positions. He adds a bit of physicality to the defense. You'll notice this theme in a little bit. I like that move for the fact that he can defend multiple positions, which is exactly what you want in this Bucks defense. He signs Bryn Forbes, formerly of the San Antonio Spurs, a good volume three-point shooter. Shooting, something you need, especially after losing Wesley Matthews, especially after mulling whether or not to re-sign Kyle Korver. You traded away George Hill, who led the NBA in three-point field goal percentage last season with 46%. Shooting is something you need. They signed Bobby Portis. Another signing I like, and I do like the Bryn Forbes signing as well. Like I said, he is a good three-point shooter. He's a volume three-point shooter, which is a lot of the things that you liked about Bogdan Bogdanović. But again, you're not going to get him. Now, I'm not saying Bryn Forbes is the same level of player that Bogdan Bogdanović is, but they're both volume three-point shooters, and they do make them at a high clip. It's something you need in this offense. Bobby Portis, a guy who plays with fire, a guy who plays with passion, physical on the defense. A stretch big. He can make that three. Now, he's at about 30, I think he was at about 36% last season. But he's young. He's 25 years old. He's still growing. He's still learning. He can up that percentage. He's not afraid to get in there and mix it up on defense. He's not afraid to get in there and stick his nose in for rebounds. That is a really, really solid pickup right there. I really do like that pickup. With the addition of Craig and Portis, you have now added a physicality on this defense that I think you have not really seen. One thing the Bucks took a lot of in the playoffs was punishment against physically defensive ball clubs. Orlando was a physically punishing defense. Steve Clifford teams usually are. They make it very, very tough on defense for you. Miami, Spoelstra, you know the pedigree he brings to the table. That defense was very, very physical with Butler, with Bam, who also got paid. Man. This is something that was missing on the Bucks defense, was that physicality. You get that with Portis and Craig. Harassing physical defense. That was something that's missing, and they picked that up. And I like those two moves. You re-sign Pat Connaughton, which, look, he didn't have the greatest playoff last season. Okay, I don't think many of the Bucks did. That's why they got bounced in the semifinals. But I think the people that are raising their eyebrow at this move, and they're raising their eyebrows for this reason, they used early birds rights on Pat Connaughton, which means you can go over the cap to re-sign a player. Well, they used the early birds rights on Connaughton for this move. You also picked up DJ Augustin, which is another solid pickup. This is a guy who could come off the bench, run that second unit. Solid guard, has been in the league about 12, 13 seasons. Can shoot pretty decently. It is another solid pickup. Then you go into the draft. You sign Sam Merrill, more shooting, out of Utah State. You sign Jordan Nwora out of Louisville, more shooting. So you got some really good young guys, good young talent that can shoot the basketball, which, again, is what you need on this ball club. You rounded out your roster, retooled your bench. I like the pickups that Horst has made. I like the way he's kind of sort of rebounded from that whole Bogdanovich fiasco. He's quietly, after that, put together, it's hard to say quietly because after you make that trade for Drew and you supposedly made that signing trade for Bogdanovich and now you didn't, and you got tampering charges, and it's kind of hard to say quietly you put together a good crew, but really these moves have been quiet. And he's quietly reshaped that bench and reshaped this roster and has done what a GM does. Now, will it all come together correctly on the basketball court? Well, we'll see that very, very soon. The season begins December 22nd. But you have to like these moves on paper. You see what the Bucks want to do. You see what the Bucks have done. You look at these guys' games that are coming on to the team, and you just imagine how they will fit and what Bud wants to do with this team, how they play. And you have to be kind of excited about it. It is a solid roster. Guys have to fulfill their roles. They have to buy all the way in, and they have to excel in their roles. That's always a worry when you get new players into a system. Will they accept their role? Will they excel at their role? But it makes this season more intriguing. You had a heartbreaking ends the last two postseasons. You had a little bit of drama in the offseason signing period. You still got a little bit of drama with Giannis not having signed his extension quite yet. You have until December 21st, the day before the season starts, to sign that deal. Otherwise, you can't do it until the offseason. But throughout all of that, Jon Horst has done a pretty good job of reshaping, retooling, reloading this roster. It's going to be really interesting come December 22nd to see how this begins to come together. It is not a full 82-game season, 72 games. It's going to be really interesting to see how these pieces come together and they continue that excellence that we've seen from them the last two seasons. Not that bubble version and that losing streak before the bubble and the stoppage in the bubble, but before all of that, it'd be interesting to see if they can reclaim that type of excellence. So let's keep an eye on the Bucks and see what they do. Continuing on State of the State here on Toss, we got to talk about the Wisconsin Badgers now. They were absolutely dominated defensively by Northwestern. Anytime they have to go down to Evansville and play at Northwestern, I worry because it is always a difficult game. Strange things always happen when they go against Northwestern at Northwestern. And here we are again. They lose that ball game on Saturday. They go down to 2-1. All right, that's after throttling Michigan the week before. Now you come into a rivalry game this Saturday. You're getting hyped up. You're back at Cap Randall. You've been on the road the last two games. You're back home finally for the first time since October. And you're in a rivalry game for Paul Bunyan's Axe against the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and except you thought you were going to be, because it was reported today that game on Saturday at Camp Randall has now been canceled, not postponed, canceled, because of a COVID outbreak on the Golden Gophers side of the football. And so this time it's not Wisconsin's COVID outbreak. It is now Minnesota's COVID outbreak. So with that cancellation, because remember, the Badgers had to cancel the game against Purdue and Nebraska. This is now their third canceled game. Because of that, they will not play enough games in the Big Ten to qualify for the Big Ten championship game. So they are out. They can no longer play in the Big Ten championship game. That's it for them. No makeups being made with Nebraska. No makeups being made with Purdue. No makeups being made with Minnesota. And I'm told that the Badgers were trying everything they could to get this game played because they knew what was at stake. If they missed one more game, if one more game of theirs was canceled, not postponed, canceled, they would not be eligible to play in the Big Ten championship game. Now, they would have had to overcome that Northwestern loss. Somehow Northwestern would have had to lose, one or two games. But they still had a shot to at least play in that game. And now they do not because they're not going to play enough games. At this point, the question becomes, do you even continue the season? Is there a point to keep playing? At one point in time, this team had 27 cases of COVID between staff and players. It's the reason why you had to cancel 2 of your ball games. Is it worth continuing to put these guys at risk, to put this staff at risk? I know Paul Chryst came out with a statement today. He's already saying, we're preparing for next week's game, and we're disappointed that we can't play this game. And typical coach speak. Paul Chryst is a good head coach, but that's typical coach speak. He himself had COVID. I don't understand what the point is of continuing the season when you really, I could sit here, I'm not on the team, and I could look at it and just say, you have nothing to play for. This game for me, anytime I played sports, like I said, basketball was my sport. I was in it to win championships and have been fortunate to do so. As much as I love my teammates, and some of them I'm still kicking it with to this day, we are competitive. We want to go and win championships. This is what we're here for. The camaraderie, the brotherhood that comes along with it, that is an extra added bonus. You are in it to win games and win championships. You can still win games, but you can't win a championship. Now, I guess you can liken this to schools who had a violation and they self-disciplined themselves by, hey, we're not gonna go to a bowl game this year. I guess it could be something like that. But at that point in time, when that has happened, there was no COVID. Guys weren't out there really risking it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Football is a violent sport, and you're really risking it. You're risking your health anytime you play it. But they didn't have this deadly contagious disease out there that you had to worry about, that you had to be extra cautious about. What is the point of putting them in that kind of danger if there is nothing really truly to gain from it other than just playing the games? Playing the games and making your TV money, and that's really what it's about. And it's a hard pill for me to swallow because I know they're going to do it. I know they're going to continue playing, but every part of me says they should not. Because there's nothing to play for. You can't play for you can't play for a championship. You can't play for a championship. So they're probably going to play the rest of their games, or as long as they don't get canceled due to COVID. But I think they're unnecessarily putting themselves in danger. But like I said, I'm not a part of the team. I'm not those individuals that are there. I cannot speak for them. They play for a multitude of reasons. Just giving my opinion. We keep it truthful, opinionated, and passionate here on Toss. I don't think they should be playing these games because they're putting themselves unnecessarily at risk. And for what? There's no championship to be won. I just want all of them to stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully this thing is over by next season. You just really, really hope so. Too many people who have gotten it, too many people who have lost their lives, continue to lose their lives. Some things just aren't worth it. So stay safe, stay healthy, Badgers. Let's move on here on State of the State on Toss and get to the Green Bay Packers. Ooh, the Packers. All right. They had a game, a big game, against the Indianapolis Colts. A couple circles were calling it a possible Super Bowl previewed. And I say it like that because, people were whispering that out because they knew they were going to get absolutely killed for putting that opinion out there. But it's not out of the realm of the possibility. They're two division leaders. One team was 7-2, the Green Bay Packers. One team was 6-3, Indianapolis Colts. One had the best defense in the NFL in the Colts. Another one, I believe the third best offense in the NFL in the Packers. Something had to give. Did the Packers win that ball game? Man, there are so many moments I could hit them with that. It's not even funny. They lost that game 34-31 in overtime. I could hit the Colts with that fail horn. Because as they were trying to ice the game late in the fourth quarter, with a lead, mind you, was 31-28 at this point. They proceeded in 8 offensive snaps to get 5 penalties. It was a stretch where I believe there were like 10 to 12 flags. The Packers did not even accept all of the penalties because they were trying to save as much time as they possibly could to try and either win the game or at least tie it, which they did. That's how they went and got into overtime. But that was one of the worst stretches of football I had ever seen from professional teams. But the thing that did this team in, Green Bay, were the turnovers. You had a rare interception thrown by Aaron Rodgers. Okay, it happens. It was a poor throw. He paid the price for it. Plus, it's a really good defense. You have to give some of the credit to the Colts. They're the number one defense for a reason, but yet somehow, some way, the Packers still put up 31 points against them. Shows you how good the Packers were. But the 3 fumbles, the last being by MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And by the way, if you're one of those disgusting people who are sending this man death threats over fumbling a damn football in a damn game, you need to slap yourself. You really need some help. Like, you really need to go and slap yourself as hard as you possibly can, because that is just absolutely disgusting. There is no place for that. Nobody deserves death threats over a game. Totally disgusting. But he fumbled it, and that effectively ended the game. Colts were pretty much already in field goal range, run a couple plays. Blankenship comes out, kicks the winning field goal, game over. Packers now 7-3, currently third in the NFC after last night's Monday Night Football results as we record this program on a Tuesday. At first, I was really mad. I won't even say mad. I was more annoyed. If you go on to TossNationMedia.com in the Toss blog, the fallout between the Colts and the Packers, you will see that I wrote about it. Like, I needed time to write when I was less annoyed. I needed to let this breathe overnight, come back, write about it with a clearer head, a clearer mind, a little bit cooled down. Because I was highly annoyed because how can you be that careless with the football? You're a 7-2 ball club. But then you go back and you realize, okay, a lot of those were forced turnovers, but it was a bad throw by Rodgers, but then you got a couple of punch outs there, and then MVS was kind of loose with the football. These are just things that you cannot afford against the number one defense. You have to be aware of that. They're trying to take the ball from you at all times. But I sat back and I rewatched the game. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, that happened there. Oh, okay, all right, that happened there. Oh, why would LaFleur go for passing the football on 4th and 1 instead of running it? Overall, it was actually a pretty good game between two pretty good teams. It was just really sloppy. And neither team is really sloppy. It was just one of those instances in football where you just get something that you normally don't get. I thought the Packers played very well offensively. They still are having trouble running the football. Excuse me. They're still having trouble running the football. That's clear. They have not had a 100-yard rusher in some weeks now. I think since Aaron Jones put up 168 or some absurd number like that. They have not had a 100-yard rusher in so very long. They're having some real trouble with that. And, yeah, there's been a lot of shuffling on the offensive line. Lindsley went out with a back injury. So, I mean, that if offensive line continues to shuffle, so you kind of have to find that chemistry with guys in different spots, and it takes a little bit. But I thought overall it was a decently played game. If you take the turnovers out of it, the Packers still had a chance to win that ball game. They shouldn't have even been in position to tie that ball game, but Aaron Rodgers and had some amazing throws. And you have to give credit to the guys that make those amazing plays. MVS, for all the death threats that he was getting, people will conveniently forget about the big catches that he had made in that game. It's hard to be mad when you get something, an anomaly. The Packers really take good care of the football. They have all season. Last few weeks, it's been different. That Colts game, it's been different. You hope that's just a culmination of turnover-type football, and they get back to the basics of ball security. But those turnovers aren't really who they are. That potent offense is. You put up 31 points against the best defense in the NFL. It took a turnover by you for them to get in position and kick a field goal in overtime to win that ball game. There's no real true thing as moral victories, but you do have to come away saying, okay, we cost ourselves that game. If we take better care of the football, we win that ball game. If we do a little bit better job on defense, and I'm trying to stay off the defense because you know what? We know their struggles. It's a bendable defense. But they gave up a hell of a lot of points in that second half. It was 28-14 at the half. You were feeling really good. You felt really good about that game at that point. And then they proceed to score that many points. They outscored you 20-3 in the second half in overtime. That's just not enough to get the job done. You've got to do a way better job than that. And I definitely don't need to tell them that. I'm pretty sure Matt LaFleur has put his foot up their ass about that already. It's Bears week. Sunday Night Football. They're in the division. They're hungry for a win. They got off to a 5-1 start. They're sitting there at 500 now. They know they have a chance to climb back into this division race. They know they have a chance to mess up your road to a number 1 seed. You cannot allow them to do that. You have to get this win against Chicago. You got to take care of business. And that's all there is to it. You got to take better care of the football. Way better care of the football. And that's the state of the state. The Bucks had a mess with the Bogdanovich trade, but John Horst, the GM, rebounded nicely and made some good signings to reshape the bench and reshape the roster, and it looks like they're ready to go for the regular season. The Badgers cannot play in the Big Ten championship game due to their now 3rd canceled game due to COVID. Shouldn't keep playing, but they're going to. And the Packers, They didn't really show who they were with all those turnovers, but they did show who they were with that good offense, at least for the first half of the game. It's Bears week. They got to go and get that game against them. They cannot lose that game against the Bears. Too much at stake. Let's roll on to the toss sweep. Toss Sweep, brought to you by the good folks, Toss Nation Media. Toss Nation Media, truthful, opinionated, passionate, sports. It's what you deserve. Whew. Weather's getting a little bit colder, throat getting a little bit dry. Almost had a coughing fit in there. Like I said, one take T-squared, man. What y'all get is how I put it out there. There's no retouching, no none of that. Not editing any of that out. Here we are on the Toss Sweep, and we got to talk NFL. We got to talk about the NFL and the good and the bad of it. You know, the good teams and the teams that are just absolutely just, whew, you thought they'd be better, but it is just rough. Let's get to the good. Tampa Bay, I think everybody kind of expected to be pretty good, although they didn't know how it would come together. I mean, Tom Brady's been in the same offense for 20 years. He's now under Bruce Arians, who likes to take shots down the field. And we know for much of his career in New England, it was more dink and dunk between the numbers. Every once in a while, he will lull you to sleep and take that deep shot, and they had a lot of success, 6 championships. But now it's Bruce Arians. Arians wants to throw it all over the yard. He wants to take those deep shots more on the regular. He doesn't believe in that dink and dunk stuff. So it was really intriguing to see how that would really come together. Because you didn't know if it would. You didn't know how good Brady was going to be. You didn't know. Obviously, you felt that he had something left in the tank. For all these people that always talk about, he has like one bad game every year, and everybody's like, oh, it's over. He's going over the cliff. And then he proceeds to get hot and somehow ends up MVP consideration every single year. It's kind of how it is this season. He has had his struggles. Don't get me wrong. I think he's already matched his total of interceptions from last season this season already with 8. So he's been a little bit turnover prone at times. And at times he's kind of struggled with this air it out type of Bruce Arians offense. But they've had a lot of success. So, you definitely have to kind of put them in the surprise mode right there. That defense is definitely better, playing better than I thought they would. I mean, you saw they had good pieces, but I didn't think they'd be flying around like they are right now. Really fast linebackers. The Packers found that out. Miami. I know they lost their game this week. Tua got benched. Head coach Brian Flores has already said that Tua's going to get his job back. There's no reason to continue to subject him to punishment. Brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick to finish that game out. But they're playing pretty well. I know I believe they're 6-4. But they're playing very well. But my worry with them is, hey, did you pull the trigger on making Tua your starting quarterback too soon? Because now you're already benching them. Again, no reason to subject your franchise quarterback to more punishment. But are there a lot more struggle games like that in the future for him? We'll have to definitely keep an eye on that. Las Vegas. Now, John Gruden had made a lot of moves, and Mike Mayock, they made a lot of questionable moves. People are like, what were you doing? The Khalil Mack trade and all that. What are you doing? Trading this guy and that guy. And what are you doing? And people just thought he was just crazy. But then you kind of see the way that he had them playing. And it's like, okay, this could come together. This could be something good. Not quite sure. They had beaten the Chiefs once. They had them on the ropes again. But a touchdown from Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce with under 30 seconds remaining did them in. I mean, this is the only team to have played them tough both times. This is the only team to have defeated the Chiefs and the Raiders. So I mean, they're playing pretty well, and I didn't think the Raiders would really be playing at a really high level like this, but they're playing pretty well. They're going to be a factor in the playoffs, especially with 7 teams making it. Pittsburgh. You knew Pittsburgh had a defense. TJ Watt. Mika Fitzpatrick. I mean, you knew they had defensive pieces. You knew they had offensive pieces. James Conner. Smith-Schuster. Now you bring on Chase Claypool. You knew they had pieces offensively and defensively, but would it all really come together? Could Mike Tomlin get these pieces together? And Mike Tomlin does what he always does. He finds a way to win. It's the last undefeated team in the National Football League. They are currently 10-0. Looking every bit of a Super Bowl contender. They win games pretty. They win games ugly. They can play any way you want to play. You want to run the ball? Okay, we can do that. You want to air it out? Okay, we can do that. You want to make this an ugly defensive struggle? We can do that too. That is it's a hell of a job being done by Mike Tomlin. He should definitely be in Coach of the Year consideration. If he isn't leading it, then I don't know who should be. I think it's a slam dunk case on that one. So that's all the good. What about the bad? Well, when I talk about the bad of a division, I'm typically talking like a couple teams from, a couple divisions. But when the entire division is bad and you have a history of doing something terrible to where you get a nickname and nobody's surprised, you know it's bad. The NFC East, more affectionately known as the NFC Least, they're all bad. They're all bad. No team in that division has 4 wins. There's a game this Thursday where the winner, and I believe it's Dallas and the Washington football team, where the winner will be in first place of the division with 4 wins. That's unless there's a tie. Please don't let there be a tie, because that's just going to make this even worse. Now, I'm a firm believer, and if you win your division, you deserve that home game. Doesn't matter what your record is. It's not your fault that the entire division stinks. It's only your fault if you stink. But when your whole division is terrible, it's kind of hard not to notice. When you put up the division leader standings and everybody's got like 6 and 7 and 8 wins, and then you look at the NFC least and it's 3 wins, it's like, what? You're going to have a 7 or 8 win team currently if the players were to start going on the road to play a 3-win team? Not that home field advantage is really going to matter this season. It's just nice to have guys in familiar surroundings to where they don't have to travel and increase their chances for COVID, which is most important. But you don't have that home juice. You don't have the fans in the stands. The juice is gone. So the home field is really not going to be the factor that it would be if fans were in the stands. But you still raise an eyebrow when you see that. It's like, come on now. So the entire NFC least, Dallas, Washington football team, Philadelphia, the New York Giants, all still in the running for a playoff spot, all still in the running for a division crown in a home game in the playoffs. But good Lord, it is just awful. Just awful. One thing I hope is not awful as I said at the beginning of the show, is your holiday. If you're celebrating, please continue to keep it small. Be smart. Don't spread this disease around, man. It is so serious. Too many people that should be here aren't, because we aren't taking the time to do what we're supposed to be doing. So please be smart. Stay home. Keep it small. If we do this, we can get back to the big gatherings and be together like we love to be. Well, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This was episode 58 of the Tristain on Sports Show Toss. Y'all know where to find me on social media at the20double. At the20double on Instagram and Twitter. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double. Toss is on Facebook. T on Sports Show. That's facebook.com/T on Sports Show. TON Sports Show. And of course, tossnationmedia.com. Your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T-Squared Tristan Thomas reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week. So long from Toss.